Good evening, folks. Glad to have everybody here. We're going to get started in just a few minutes with Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, amazing leader in Congress, and she's got a great set of tools out there that we're going to talk about. But of course, as always, we'll talk about all of the latest news on the political front, particularly in Congress. And she's got some great insights, and she's done some amazing work lately that I really want to dig into her with her. So, good evening. I'm Marie Newman, and this is my live stream show on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Central Daylight Time. And as always, we talk a little politics, a little humanity, and what's good and what's bad. So tonight is no different. I have the amazing Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal with me tonight. And as folks come on, we'll talk about some of the topics that we're going to cover. We're going to talk about kind of the state of play right now. Interestingly, Donald Trump backed down a bit, got scared of Chicago. He's backed off a little bit on us. And so what do I always say, folks? I always say capitulation never goes anywhere. It doesn't work. Fighting back works. And we'll talk a lot about that because we're going to talk about the resistance shortly. But we'll talk a little bit about the CDC cutting. I'm sure the Congresswoman will have some opinions on that. Our ability to have fair and free elections, that's very serious right now. And I think there's some good news and bad news on that front. We'll cover that a little bit. Since today we had that heartbreak of a presser today right at the Capitol for the Epstein survivors. Wow, that was compelling. I dipped in a few times, and I think anybody that watched it couldn't help but be moved. And I love what's happening there, so we'll talk a little bit about that. And some other topics. But before I do that, I'm going to introduce my amazing guest tonight. So let me tell you a little bit about Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal. She has been a leader in the Progressive Caucus. She actually was the chair for many years, for 6 years, I believe, and now she's in the emeritus position. So still has her pulse on all the stuff. So we're so pleased that she's still an instrumental part of that. But she's busy getting amazing legislation out the door and working on 4 committees. And just FYI, kids, most people just have 2 committees, but because she's an overachiever, she's on 4. So she is on the House Budget Committee, Foreign Relations, Steering and Policy, and then, of course, the very, very important Judiciary. And she's done some great work on there, and we'll talk about that. But with no further ado, my friend, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, say hello.
It is so good to see you. We miss you in Congress, but I know you're doing amazing work right where you are, and it's great to be with you, Marie.
Well, it's so good to have you. And for folks that are listening in tonight, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal was a great mentor to me in Congress, and I admire her work. So that's why she's one of the first people I thought of when I started my show 8 weeks ago, is that, wow, I really want to get her insights, because we don't talk often enough because she's just a little busy. So let's dig in. So let's talk about the state of play, Pramila. The most concerning thing to me right now is the militarization of our cities. And Chicago got real feisty, and now he's backing off. But, he's still in D.C. There's some dregs of it still in California. And I hear now, quote unquote, the governor of Louisiana invited him down. And maybe it was because he has his tail between his legs because Chicago scared him. I don't know. But so tell us a little bit about why that is illegal. What is wrong with it? I mean, we all know it's wrong, but share a little bit from your vantage point.
Yeah, absolutely. And congratulations, Chicago, because you did scare him. And that is exactly right. What you said earlier, capitulation is never the answer. Fighting back is always the answer. With Donald Trump, he's a bully. And what do bullies do? They don't give in when somebody gives in. They just keep bullying. And so the only way to deal with a bully is stand up to them. Look, this whole question of militarizing the U.S. National Guard, calling out the military in the streets on U.S. soil against United States citizens is illegal. And just this week, a federal judge said that, clearly ruled on L.A. and said that Donald Trump calling in the National Guard, using the military in California in Los Angeles without the governor's approval was illegal. And so that, I think, is another thing, along with Chicago scaring him, that has got him rethinking this, because he is, at this point anyway, prohibited from doing that in LA, but that would be the same result if he were to go to Chicago or somewhere else. Now, DC is a little bit different in that in DC, there is, because of its status, there is the ability for the president in an emergency situation to call out, yeah, exactly, to call out to federalize the police in DC, and that's what he's done. I think that will also go to court. And we'll see whether this, basically he calls anything an emergency situation, and then anytime he wants to distract, he sends in the military. I have been watching, as there are smaller numbers, but still increasing numbers of National Guard who are speaking out and saying, "This is not what I signed up for. This is not what I'm going to do." And I think ultimately, with authoritarian regimes, with dictators and wannabe dictators, it does require people within those pillars of support that they utilize to really fight back. But it's a terrifying thing, Marie. I mean, you know where I live because you were right here as well, and it's scary to walk around and to see, all these military police and people in fatigues and even tanks on the streets. I read an account of a tank that went right into a parked car because, of course, these tanks are not made to drive on regular city streets, so they don't have rear view mirrors, side view
It's not a
mirrors where
hair
they
point
can.
turn. Yeah.
That's right. It's actually designed so that nobody can see in and you can't see out.
Okay.
And and so this is the kind of thing that's happening. And I just think, for me, all of this is about Donald Trump testing the limits of his power to the absolute max, and taking over the power that is supposed to be of the people, of Congress, even of the courts. I mean, he's gone back and forth about whether he's listening to courts or not, particularly when it comes to immigration. But it is a very scary thing, and I think this court decision is very, very important. Now we'll see what happens with these southern states that invite him in, because I'm not sure that those Republican people who live in those districts, those constituents, are going to be excited about this either. And by the way, it's an enormous, enormous expenditure of money, huge waste of their time. I mean, the military is here, the National Guard is here for critically important things, not for propping up Donald Trump's ego.
Or gardening. Or
Or
picking up
gardening.
trash. I
Yeah,
mean, they're highly skilled folks, and
highly
it
skilled.
not only is scary to see all those folks running around, it feels like, 1950s Russia, but it also, it is such a slap in the face, and it is demoralizing to the National Guard, and it is so disrespectful for their skill set, right?
It is
And,
so
and
disrespectful.
similarly with ICE, right? You know this well, by the way, Pramila is an immigration expert as well. This nonsense that these masked, quote unquote, rent-a-cop ICE agents, they're both ends of the continuum. They're the actor, this goofy Dean Cain that has never had any training or skilled and has nothing to speak of that is appropriate for that job to be an ICE agent, all the way over to they have highly skilled FBI agents doing perimeter work, which is insane. They should be, chasing after bad guys, to be very clear, right? So all of that is so upsetting to me. But would you agree this triangulation is really getting to him, meaning the state AGs, the 23 blue AGs coming in with all of this, all of the lawsuits and litigation, the governors standing up and saying, "Look, dude, if you come here, it is not going to be fun for you." I mean, many have done it. Our governor, J.B. Pritzker, did a really good job. And I will say there's one interesting benefit to all this, in each of these states that is affected by his bullying. All parts of government comes together and works together really beautifully. I saw all of our Democratic governor, AG, several mayors, commissioners, Cook County folks, all of them coming together, and they worked so quickly to prepare for this. And I was so proud, so
Mhm.
proud. So there's a slight upside to this. Let's move over to CDC, and I will tell you that, like, my new favorite term for this, guys, for RFK Jr. Um, there's like three comedians out there that have various terms, but one is called the blankiest Kennedy, and it starts with an S because he is. So tell us a little bit about what Congress can do, can't do. What are you thinking?
Well, I think what's, so scary here is this is health, right? This is people's health, public health. He has destroyed the Vaccine Advisory Commission. He has destroyed all of the trust in our public health agency. The CDC has been devastated. And actually, you may have seen that today, our governor in Washington State, Governor Bob Ferguson, Governor Newsom, and I think uh, Governor Brown in Oregon, or Kotek, excuse me, in Oregon, all came together and said that we are creating our own public health um, sort of coalition. And we're going to be putting out our own recommendations on things like vaccines, et cetera, because clearly the CDC has been taken over and we don't have a national public health institute that we can rely on that relies on facts and science.
Mhm.
That is what RFK has been doing, is really pulling the strings and destroying. And the hard thing about this, Marie, I was born in India and I grew up all over the world, and I would be dead if it weren't for vaccines. I mean, I would not make it. I would not have made it if it hadn't been for the vaccinations that I was able to get. And there are so many diseases that we have been able to, we thought, eradicate from the United States, that are back. I mean, you look at measles now, and the devastation that this is going to cause in the United States of America, but also around the world. I mean, all of the cuts to NIH, and to all of the health funding. I've been hearing we have a big international public health, um, sort of coalition of organizations in Washington state. We do a lot of international global health work. And what they are telling me is that even the samples that we were sent from all over the world that we used to analyze here in the United States to have the early warning of when new viruses are breaking out so that we can immediately go to contain those viruses, which then stops them from crossing borders and coming here to the United States. All of that has stopped.
Yeah.
And so, I think RFK has done such an incredible disservice, so much harm to our public health system. And, there are many things that he could have been doing that would have been good. He could be taking on the biggest private health insurance companies, for profit health insurance companies that are basically vertically integrating and raising our costs for all Americans. He could be taking those folks on, but that's not what he's doing. He's really destroying science and going back on decades of research and overseeing all of that, which is just very, very unfortunate. Now, there's a couple of things, here and there. I'll just be honest and say here and there, he's doing some good things, right? He's taking on the
Do
companies that
tell.
are putting food dyes in our products.
True.
But if only it were just that. That's
Yeah.
like, maybe 1%, and then the other 99% is doing Trump's bidding and doing his own bidding, and getting rid of so much science and research.
The brain drain is phenomenal. I've heard in three different major organizations, former NIH folks and WHO, World Health Organization leaders saying that this gutting that he's done of taking all of these leaders out, everybody from the vaccine committee over to scientists that were working on trials, all
Yeah.
of it is putting us back between 10 and 12.5 years. in terms of
Yeah,
our science.
I
Even if
believe
we were
that.
to recreate it, like,
Yeah.
in the next 2 or 3 years, still, it has done so much damage with these clinical trials, et cetera. It
Well,
is,
some of
so
that is
it's
the
heartbreaking.
funding.
It's
You know,
heartbreaking.
some of that is all the funding cuts that Doge and Trump. I call Doge, by the way, the Department of Greed and Evil. But Doge and Trump have overseen where now the NIH, so much of the work that we were doing has been stopped, and these scientists, these researchers, they're all getting invitations from around the world, from China, from
And we
Europe, from uh, just about everywhere in the world, saying, "We'll pay for your research. Come here. You know, your research got stopped. Come here." And you add to that immigration. You mentioned immigration a little bit ago. You add to that the fact that we're going after the visas of people who try to come here, who are doing such important work, and those who are here doing such important work, simply because we don't like their views on on Palestine and Gaza. It's absolutely absurd. They're all saying we don't want to be here. I was just in India and I had several people say to me, "Well, I was supposed to be coming back to go to college, to go to graduate school, to be a research assistant, but I'm not going to anymore because the United States is not a place where I can speak my mind. They're going to come after me and they're going to pick me up and throw me into detention if they don't like what I say. I'm not interested in that." So they're going somewhere else.
Yeah, we're losing great minds, great young people with lots of energy, and
That's right.
as old and corny as it is, we never know who's going to cure cancer. We don't
That's
know
right.
that, right? We
Exactly
just can't
right.
predict that. So
Yeah,
we likely, I did an article on my Substack column several months ago. It's like we've probably just deported the next person who's going to cure cancer. We probably have. It's
totally.
crazy.
Yeah.
Moving on to free and fair elections, right? I try to take a balanced view on this because while we have a very disintegrated system, meaning that each state has a different system, and it was by design, right? So that in the event that something crazy happens, like you have a fascist leader, um, you still have the ability to have free and fair elections. And so right now, it would be very hard to not have a fair election. Now, they still could uh, decide to not certify the election. So there's still that. But we have lots of backstops, and we do have a bulwark because it is not integrated into one federal system. And, whether he's trying to take away mail-in voting, which could be a double-edged sword for him because a lot of his people do mail-in voting. So we'll see. But so tell us a little bit about your thoughts around free and fair elections and the kind of the balance of that.
Well, I think there's a couple of ways to look at it. Like you said, we do have systems that are in place and are monitored by the state. So in that sense, we have some security around the idea that we're going to have a free and fair election. But there are many ways, as we saw around January 6th and the 2020 election, where there can be interference in that, and you can have somebody who doesn't even accept the results or tries to screw around with how states certify their results, all kinds of things. But in addition to that, I think one of the things that's really got me worried right now is the fact that the gerrymandering that's happening,
Mm,
right, in states across the country makes it so that the election isn't free or fair to start with. I mean, what they did in Texas is absolutely unprecedented. Absolutely unprecedented. They essentially, it was the end of the Voting Rights Act. There is no way a Latino, an African American could win any except for the one district in Austin that was drawn, where our friend Greg Casar
yeah.
will be the candidate in that district. But literally, they have made it impossible for African Americans. I mean, Sheila Jackson, our colleague who's passed away,
Rest in
God
peace.
rest her soul,
Yeah.
Sheila Jackson Lee, um, we will never have another Sheila Jackson Lee if they have their way. And so the problem is that what they're doing in Texas, they now plan to repeat in multiple Republican states. And of course, as you know, we in Democratic states tried to make sure our elections were always that we wouldn't have any gerrymandering. So we put into our constitutions, our state constitutions, the idea of something like, a bipartisan, an independent redistricting commission, right? That's what we have in Washington state. It's in our state constitution. So if we want to change it, we need a 2/3 majority. That's true in California as well. They have a 2/3 majority. So they were able to do what Governor Newsom said that they would do, which is if Texas goes ahead, California is going to do it. The problem for us is that most of the rest of our states don't have 2/3 majorities.
Right.
And so we can't change our constitution, whereas the Republican states never made it fair to start with. And so it's easy for them to change it. So I am worried about this. We have time to push back. And I think at the end of the day, maybe this is what you were getting at. People's vote is so important. I mean, this is why we had in the last election. It is true that Donald Trump narrowly won the vote across the country, but the reason he did is because 90 million Americans didn't vote.
That's right.
Right. And there are many reasons for that. I mean, people feel like the electoral college that we have is broken. There's so many different reasons why people are disgusted with both parties. You and I certainly know that. And so people don't vote. They feel like the Democratic Party has told them for too long that they're naive and that they should just get with the party and that they should, just vote anyway, despite the fact that nobody's talking to them, nobody's bringing them in. That's what the Progressive Caucus was always trying to do, is speak to young people, speak to folks of color, bring people in. It is not naive or idealistic to think that everyone should have universal health care through Medicare for All, which you and I are both, that's my bill, and you were such a strong supporter in Congress. So we have lost people, Marie, and I think that means that it's a very small percentage of people in the United States who are actually choosing the party that governs, and that is a big problem combined with gerrymandering. That I think is something that if we get back the trifecta, we need to expand the Voting Rights Act. We have to get money out of politics. I am so sick of the way this works and seeing good people like you not in Congress anymore because, billionaires and special interest groups are pouring money into these elections instead of just letting people vote for the people that are going to actually protect them, represent them.
Let's go ahead and hit that one, Pramila, money in politics. So we do have bills drafted toward that to stop super PACs. I know Ro Khanna has one. I think you've had one in the past.
Yeah.
And what it would effectively do is get rid of super PACs, corporate PACs, bring the high donor donation down very much from where it is, so there's not as much control. And what that does, folks, is that it doesn't give donors and wealthy people as much control over members of Congress. And I do have good news and bad news for you. There are folks that don't take corporate money and bully PAC money, and I name names. So AIPAC, Democratic Majority for Israel, United Democracy Project, all of those AIPACs. 314 Science, don't be fooled, is AIPAC. All of those bully PACs plus the corporate PACs do have control. They get talking points and they're told what to do. And sadly, it's folks in the Democratic Party as well. Only 10% of Congress doesn't take that, what I call just effectively dirty money. So at the end of the day, we have all these folks that won't do things because they're told by corporate interests or bully PACs that they can't. And this is not in anybody's interest. So what I am telling everybody, and you hear me talk about this in my Substack column and on my radio show and all of it all the time, is that don't support candidates that take corporate money or bully PAC money. It's
exactly right. Exactly right. Because people need to know that we work for them, not for the people that fund our campaigns. I have never taken corporate PAC money, never will. Don't take AIPAC money. AIPAC hates me just like they hate you. And I've got news for you. They are becoming increasingly unpopular. We've had some Democrats come out now and say that they're not going to take AIPAC money. And that's not just Progressive Caucus members. That's moderate members in states like North Carolina, Kentucky.
Yeah, I saw Deb Ross come up. That's great. I
Deb
think
Ross
that's so
did, Val
important.
Fouché did, Morgan McGarvey did. So we're hoping more do that as well. And APAC is just a model. That's what crypto modeled themselves after. And any corporation, any corporate interest, special interest can do just what APAC and crypto are doing. And to me, it is such a betrayal of working people because you're not actually representing those people's interests. You're representing the people who fund your campaigns. I will say just one good piece of news, Marie, because we just launched it today. We just introduced a bipartisan bill to ban stock trading by members of Congress. If you
Amen.
come to Congress, you should not trade stocks. Your spouse should not trade stocks. Your kids, your dependent children should not trade stocks. If you want to trade stocks, go to Wall Street. If you want to represent the people, come to Congress.
Yeah,
And so this is a bipartisan effort. I've had a bill with Elizabeth Warren and with Republicans, Ken Buck, who's now left, but
yeah,
for over 6 years now
yeah,
on this, and there have been a number of bills. Well, we all came together, and it's an unusual coalition. It's Chip Roy, Brian Fitzpatrick, Tim Burchett, Anna Anna Paulina Luna, and then on our side, me, Seth Magaziner, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, a number of others. So it's an interesting coalition, but
yeah.
we intend to get this thing to the floor. If we have to do it through a discharge petition, we will. We'll try a regular order first. But we are tired of both parties blocking this kind of sensible reform that ensures that we work for the American people and not to pad our own pocketbooks.
Right. And I would just add to the Congresswoman's comments there that make sure your member of Congress, particularly if they're whether a Democrat or a Republican, because there's Democrats that won't sign on to this too, by the
Oh,
way.
yeah.
As amazingly persuasive as my kind friend is here in the show today.
Well, listen, they're just
There are
quiet about it.
everybody should be signing on to this.
That's
Every single member of the Democratic Party, and God bless the Republicans that are coming on. And it also goes to show this work that the Congresswoman has done to show that we can be bipartisan and we do have similar views on some things. Let's agree where we can, and where we can't, let's work on it,
that's
right?
right.
And keep working. I don't want to get any farther down into the show. I want to talk about your resistance lab. So tell us what this is. I do want to preemptively say one thing is that, folks, every member of Congress should have one of these models that gives their district a set of tools how to fight back, what works and what doesn't. And if they don't, you should be demanding it. I have to tell you, the members of Congress that are not guiding their district and partnering with them is wrong. So, buck up and tell your member of Congress they should do this. So listen in. The Congresswoman is going to tell us about her resistant lab.
Yeah, well, I started Resistance Lab about 4 months ago because I saw the incredible frustration that we all had around looking at what was happening in complete disbelief and not knowing really how do you fight back against an authoritarian power? What do you do when there's so much democratic backsliding that none of the checks and balances are actually working? And so started talking to experts from around the world and here in the United States about democratic backsliding and the best way to fight back, and put together this 2-hour virtual training so anyone can join from anywhere in the country. You can go to resistancelab.us to sign up. In fact, the very next one is this coming Sunday. And Marie, we have in just 4 months trained over 13,000 people in all 50 states about the most effective ways to take on authoritarianism, dictators. What are the best ways to fight back? What have we learned from other examples? And how do we do it right here in the United States? And it's probably the thing that gives me the most joy in the work I'm doing right now, because people come on kind of hopeless and in despair and not knowing what to do. And they leave fired up and recognizing that really the only bulwark to authoritarianism is the people. Because by definition, what happens is the authoritarian grabs power of all the existing institutions, whether it's Congress, whether it's the courts, all of those things. And so what you saw as traditional checks and balances don't work. And the only way to fight back against that is to really build a collective movement. And you don't need to wait for someone else to tell you what to do. There is no savior, folks. I'm sorry to
That's
say,
right.
there
And
is
no
no
silver
savior
bullet,
coming.
folks. No savior
That's
and no
right.
silver.
No silver bullet. And it's not a one and done thing. And it's not necessarily going to be quick. So we need to train ourselves in nonviolent, effective resistance. And what is that? What does it look like? How do you participate in it? That's what we cover in Resistance Lab. And I'm just so excited. I'm doing the virtual one on Sunday. And then for anybody that's in New York that may be on, I'm actually doing one in person in Brooklyn a week from Sunday with Working Families Party and some others. So
If you go to the Resistance Lab site, can you sign up if you are in the
you
New
can
York? We
sign
do have
up, right?
viewers in New York, so folks that
You
are in
can
New
sign
York,
up for
it'll
any
be well
event.
worth your time.
Yeah, and the one that's virtual this Sunday, you can sign up for as well. They're actually every month, so it gives you the option to sign up for any one of them over the next couple of months. But it's been amazing. We have something like 2,500 people signed up for this one on Sunday. Um, and in each one, we actually managed to break into small groups, believe it or not. And that has been one of the parts that people love the most. I was so nervous about doing it because so many people, but we do it virtually, and it means that you might be with somebody you would never otherwise talk to from like Texas or
Right.
Florida or, wherever. And the conversations have just been so rich. And the stuff that's come out of it, the real activity that has come out of it, and how people have used the training to do things in their own communities and to really get ready for those big coordinated events has just been phenomenal. And frankly, it's to me, it's the only thing that we can really do right now to make sure that we are taking on the democratic backsliding that we're seeing all around us.
I want to underline one more important thing that Pramila said, folks. While there's no silver bullet and there's no savior, we are the leaders. We are going
That's
to
right.
save us. We are
That's
not
right.
going to be relying on, and I'm going to say it for her. She may not feel the same. What I'm very angry with our Democratic leadership right now. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are rolling over at every turn, and I'm frustrated. And what's worse is Hakeem Jeffries knows how to lead. I've seen him up and close and personally knows how to do it. Chuck Schumer, less so. I'm just being very candid with everyone here. But it is very frustrating. So look to the leaders that are leading. Pramila has a set of tools that you can use. Whether it is Chris Murphy in the Senate who speaks up and has great legislative and procedural ideas, actually. Brian Schatz has great procedural work he's doing in the Senate. On the Oversight Committee, Ro Khanna is pushing the Epstein files and making sure that we have justice and transparency there. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is doing great work by speaking up and doing this tour with Bernie. These tours, and it's not unlike what Pramila is doing. She's hosting sessions where it gives you hope and real tools that work in a real way. Because as I tell everybody, it's like, it is a long list. It is the boycotts. The boycotts work, folks.
Yeah.
They work in tandem with everything. So think of this as like a treatment system for cancer. Chemo is the calling Republicans and Democrats every day to complain about the bad bills, right? And the radiation is the town halls and making sure that people understand what's going on underneath them. Boycotting these heinous companies like Amazon and the like that have bad DEI policies and that are price gouging all of the pharma companies. So keep boycotting them. So it's all of the things together. Let me ask you this, Pramila, as we head towards the end of our time together. I ask this of everybody that comes on my show. What do you think we're ignoring at our own risk? Is there something that's underlying that you are concerned about that you think, wow, this could be very perilous?
I mean, I really do think that what we're doing on what we're allowing to happen on immigration is maybe one of the worst things I've seen because it's this, the federal government has a lot of power in immigration. And I think for a lot of Americans, it hasn't been really clear to most people how complicated the immigration system is and how much power the federal government has. And so they are able to use immigration as a cudgel. But what I want to remind every American about is that if you can do this to the most vulnerable, the script of a dictator, of an authoritarian, is to go first to the people that they think will be most acceptable to terrorize, right? And then once they're allowed to do that and to undermine those civil rights, those constitutional protections, then you move on to the next group and the next group and the next group. And so I really do think that everything that happens on the immigration front is essentially what Donald Trump wants to do to anyone in this country.
Right.
And you're seeing it right now because US citizens are getting swept up in all of these things as well. But I just think that's important for people to understand. There is no us and them when it comes to immigrants and Americans. I mean, we all are descended from immigrants or immigrants ourselves, or brought over, our ancestors were brought over on slave ships unwillingly, except for our indigenous Native American population. And I think that what's happening right now, people should really see everything that's being done to immigrants as the test balloon for what is going to be done to any American.
Agree. I think, it is the Nazi playbook, the
Yeah,
Stalin playbook. It is, you inoculate horrifying, cruel behavior on people that another group perhaps
that's
doesn't
right.
like, right? And
That's right.
then it gets rolled out to everybody. So
Yeah.
watch for that. Well, thank you so much. Can you tell us the website of your Resistance Lab
Yes.
toolkit again?
Yes, it is resistancelab.us. So you can just go to resistancelab.us. You can sign up there for this Sunday session. Like I said, it's virtual, or any other upcoming session, including the in person one in Brooklyn a week from Sunday. So that'll be fun too.
Well, good. Well, you've been tremendous and we've learned a lot tonight. Thank you so much. And I also want to share your political site so people can see the good work that you're doing. If you can share that, Pramila.
Yeah, you bet. It's Pramila for Congress, and it's just PRAMILA Congress.com. And you can also follow me. My campaign handles are Pramila Jayapal, and on the official side, it's Rep Jayapal.
Well, good. And do go visit her sites and look at her policies. Check out her Stock Act. Very important. Get your members of Congress to support her bill. Call them tomorrow. I'm not kidding. Do it.
Yeah.
And then finally, I will say support Pramila. I mean that because she's one of the ones that is a great leader and actually gets things done. So you want to put your resources where, in fact, it will work best, folks. So support Pramila and others. And we're going to have lots of members of Congress on my show. So, and only the good ones. No, I'm kidding.
That's only what I would expect. Why bring the bad ones on?
I'm just kidding. But okay, folks, thank you so much for being on tonight. Check out the Resistance Lab. Sign up for it. We're so proud of everything she's doing. And thank you so much, Pramila. And everybody be well.
Thank you, Marie.
Have a good night, guys.